when we fear and resist negative emotion, we suffer. And when we have compassion for it and we allow it, we grow and thrive. Welcome to the Connect Method Parenting Podcast, where correction is out, connection is in, and your kids want to listen to you. I'm Andy Martineau, creator of Connect Method Parenting, here to help you stay calm, confident, and connected no matter what. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the podcast. Today I'm sharing a replay from a call that I did inside of my group about a year ago. I was listening back to this call recently, and my daughter listened to it too, and we got talking, and we thought this would be so fun to share on the podcast. So I reached out to the mom that I coached, got her permission, and so here we are. Enjoy the coaching call. I am going to just be answering questions and coaching. So the reason it's so important is because doing the learning is great. Love learning. I'm all about learning. But if we don't apply it to our lives, it's just not going to translate as quickly and as well. So when we get on these calls, I'll be just making sure I'm helping you guys move through whatever you need to move through with your kiddos, with the course, it could even be logistics. So that is what we're doing today. I'll have you come on. That's great.
Hey.
Oh, I love your beanie. So cute.
Hey. We're just going to take the kids on a walk. I'll just listen as we're walking. And
I know. And then I'm like, hey, we're talking today. But do you have anything that's come up that you want to chat about?
Yeah. So I was doing a thought download on it, and maybe I don't need to know why, but I kind of want to know why.
Okay.
But my son was supposed to help teach at church on Sunday. And during the week, we worked on it a little bit. And then it was Saturday night. And I was like, oh, crap, you have that tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
And he had a busy day. And we talked about, okay, you need to do or he had argued with me about something. And I was like, okay, well, what would you rather do? And he's like, I want to do it tonight, work on it tonight. I'm like, okay, fine. Okay. So the nighttime comes and I'm like, okay, you ready to work on this? And he's like, no, I'm just going to throw out some scriptures and show a video. And it really bugged me for some reason. And I was like, all right, if you want to look stupid, fine. But that's what I was like, or you can spend a little bit of time on it and put your thoughts together and look like you know what you're talking about. Either one's fine. So I said in such a snooty way. And I was thinking about it, and I was trying to do a thought download on why would I say that to my son? What was going on in my head? And there's this part of me that's like, well, maybe I don't need to know why.
How does that feel?
So then I was like, well, what would I have wanted to do instead? I don't like it. I want to know why that bothered me, because I don't want to do it again. I'm like, why was I so irritated? And these are hypothesis was,
okay, give me your
was
hypothesis.
I worried about what the teacher was going to think of me if showed up unprepared, because he had reached out and asked us to help him, and so I didn't know if that was maybe feeling it because it was a reflection on me. I mean, I don't know. I don't think it is, but maybe. But in the end, what I did decide was okay, well, how? And I couldn't even figure out what my thought was. I didn't even know what it was. But in the end, I decided, what did I want to think? And the thought was along the lines of, you know what? If he had been well, I'll just do this and this, that's a great start. That's a great start. Yeah, let's start there. Do you want to start in 10 minutes? You know what I mean? And so I was thinking about overall what my role is as a parent. My role is to encourage, believe in his best, speak to his best, teach, inspire, but it's not necessarily to get mad when he doesn't do what I want when I want him to do it. You know what I mean? So, but it's still kind of bothering me that I don't know why that bugged me. Why that even, why I was well, see, well, it's stupid. Who cares? He's 12, why does it even matter?
And it's
let
interesting.
The boy fail,
Let the boy fail. Yeah. What do you think will happen if you discovered why?
I'd be enlightened and I wouldn't do it again.
Okay.
Maybe. But that's what I was do I really need to know why? What I need to know is, how do I want to be? Right?
You can do both. I think sometimes we can fixate on why, and it doesn't always matter, just like you're saying. There's two ways that you can look at this. One, thinking that the understanding why is going to change the actions. That's interesting, right? Because how many things do you know that
You know the information, but it doesn't change your actions. You know you shouldn't eat this or you should exercise this amount, right? But does it always equal into changing the actions?
Yeah, and maybe that's more of a like counseling kind of mentality, because like when I go to counseling, they're always like, well, why do you think that is?
Yeah. And I'm not saying there's not good things that can come from understanding why. Let's dig into that just for understanding, because I do think there's value in understanding the default model, like the default steer that we have when we did that. So were you saying that's where you couldn't figure out your thought of what the thought was?
I had no idea what my thought was. If I would even.
And that's interesting. That's probably more interesting to me.
Hold this here. Yeah, I couldn't even figure out like what my thought was before, because I just responded so quickly. And then I just felt like I was guessing, like, well, maybe it's because this person had asked me specifically to help him with it. And so he came unprepared. Maybe I felt like I didn't do the job.
Yeah, it could be that. I mean, something about it wasn't okay.
Yeah.
It's not okay that he does this.
Or it could have been that this in the morning, he said, we'll do it tonight. And then it was time to do it tonight. He was giving me a hard time about it because I already given him an opportunity to postpone, if you will. And then it was like the 11th hour. And he's like, I'll just do this. I'm like, no, that's not acceptable. And that's why I was like, I guess if you want to do that and look stupid, fine.
Yeah, that's the judgment. Let's explore it this way. What if the result was he wasn't prepared and he wasn't able to follow through on it, or at least not a very good job, in your mind? Why is that a problem? That's going to dig into
why is it a problem?
Mm-hmm.
It's really that's where you learn, is through failure, right? What if he did look stupid and he learns? What's the worst thing that could happen? Yeah, I don't know why it bothered me, but exactly, because that's the other thing. He had a test to study for, and and usually I'm like, whatever. But the teacher had sent out an email specifically being like, hey, this is their first test and 65% of their grade. And, they can do this. So make sure they study. And I think when someone else is saying they need to do something, because usually I'm like, if you study fine. If you fail it, then you fail it. So
is it around failure, not being okay with failure, you think?
I feel I'm okay with failure, but then when someone's asking me for him to perform, then I feel more responsible that he needs to do well, or at least attempt, make some effort. And maybe what I took from it was he's not even making effort when he was like, I'll just have him read a scripture and look at a video. I was like, no, you can put 5 minutes into this. Come on. But that's what I'm saying. Why can't I just been, okay, well, that's a great start, right? That's a great start. Let's work on that together instead of judging him for it, right?
Can you sit in the reaction your body had to fight against him not being prepared? You're like, I shouldn't have feel this way. I shouldn't feel this way. Sometimes we so quickly jump out of it that we're like, oh, my body is trying to tell me something, right? I have a belief here.
Yeah.
And part of me doesn't feel safe if he fails, if I'm been asked to help him or some version of that, and just really honor that.
Right.
It doesn't have to make sense. Usually it doesn't make sense. It's kind of toddler level rational. You're like, oh, this doesn't make any sense, but honoring it.
Yeah.
So if the thought is something like, this isn't okay, what is the emotion? Was it?
I was irritated.
Irritated.
Pin down that. That was pretty easy.
Okay,
I was definitely irritated.
Great. And then you said,
yeah, fine. You can look stupid.
Yeah. What did that create in the moment? Sometimes that's really what we need to understand, just create safety and understanding of what that did for us.
Are you saying sitting in the unintentional model instead of just trying to let's figure out why or something?
Yeah.
Or?
Yeah. Well, if sometimes instead of what's the deep rooted reason, right? Sometimes just understanding, oh, this isn't serving me and it's okay. And I can see the result and I can create safety in my body around the fact that it happened. And I want to create something different. So now we're creating something different, not from trying to jump out of it because it feels really uncomfortable. I don't want to feel irritated with him. I know that's not where I want to be. It's more from a place of oh, I see that. And I love me in that moment, even though it wasn't perfect. And now I get to create something different, not from a place of judgment or.
Yeah. From a place of, okay, that happened. And that in reality, things are going to happen, right? Something like that might happen again. I really want to get away of labeling with words. I just want to get to make him think he's stupid. everything's good or something like that, you know? But like just getting more aware would, and maybe I don't need to know why it happened to be aware. I just need to validate that it happened. And then by creating like, what would I want to do next time? And you know, honestly, something good came out of it because later I was like, hey, I'm really sorry I snapped at you. And he stood there. I'm like, okay, your turn. And he goes, I'm sorry I was so stubborn. And that was huge because like that's like he never acknowledges his part in things. So I felt like that was kind of a win.
So let me just review the steer really quick that we came up with just to have more awareness around it. Son asked to do something in church, teach. I can't remember if you said, was it lesson or a talk or something, teach, right? And then we could have some other facts in the situation, right? Like he said, let's do it later. He, you know, the words he said about kind of deferring it. And then your thought was, this isn't okay, or he should be doing something different, right? He should be preparing. So then you're irritated and you say some words like, if you want to not prepare and look stupid, then so be it, right? Kind of things. The result that I see coming out of it that is showing up right now is that you weren't okay with where you were or with where he was.
With how I was.
Well, the resistance towards his behavior and then some judgment towards how you reacted.
Right. Because I was annoyed that he even did that, but then I was mad, like not mad, but I was like, dang it, not ideal. Right. Like
So if we took that whole summary we just came up with right there and we put it as the new situation, right? We just plopped that whole steer model back and we'll treat it as a fact, right? That's the lowdown of what happened. Then what do you want your thoughts to be about that situation? If you're new to Connect Method Parenting, I have a great way for you to get started. I created a free course that covers some of the biggest challenges parents are facing and how Connect Method Parenting solves them. In an hour, we're going to talk about why parenting is so hard, how to get your kids to want to listen to you, how to stop yelling and losing your cool, and become that calm, confident, connected parent for good. It's the fastest way to get started using connection as your go-to tool for influencing and impacting your kids. Go to cmp.works/course to get instant access today.
It's okay that it happened. It doesn't mean that it doesn't mean that I'm not growing, but rather it's like, okay, another opportunity to learn.
Yeah.
And you know what? Honestly, if I didn't take the time to think about it, then maybe, well, no, that still doesn't mean I'm a bad, not progressing, but these are all opportunities that are helping me level up, if you will.
So this is kind of like the first step out of it. You've done some of this already, but just to kind of like go through it a little bit more intentionally. It's like, okay, so it's okay. It happened. It doesn't mean I'm a bad mom. It means I'm growing. I'm looking at this and I'm growing. It's okay. So then what's the emotion?
And compassion or grace.
Okay.
Patience with myself too.
So then the actions are, okay, you did thought downloads. Now we're doing a steer on it, right? You're getting more patience and understanding, more acceptance towards yourself, moving towards that more and more. That allows your thinking brain to come back on. Now that we're kind of in this place and we're maybe less frantic about trying to understand it, does some understanding come up maybe a little bit more now that we're taking a little bit of a view back?
No, I'm still not sure why I said it, but maybe that's okay. Like, it's just for some reason, it was a trigger for me.
Yeah.
For whatever reason, and that's okay. And those are going to happen in the future. Yeah. And like, they're just opportunities, right?
Exactly.
They're just opportunities to try again and to model for my son how relatable I am.
I love that. Well, and I think too, it'd be really hard to get to the bottom of everything that triggers us, right? But if we can start to create safety around things that trigger us in general, right? It's like, I'm triggered now about this, but the window of tolerance is bigger. I have the ability to be triggered, but stay feeling safe so that I don't snap. Right. Where I stay level-headed.
Yeah. Like, and that's really interesting. Because I think earlier you asked what was it going on in my body? And I think just becoming more aware of that in those situations, I think that's actually really helpful.
Yeah.
And I like the idea of creating safety because those opportunities are going to happen again. And I think the first step at getting better at recognizing it is to acknowledge how I'm feeling in that moment instead of just reacting. So actually, by taking the time to go back, I'm already doing what needed to happen
to
help me become more aware So the next thing that happens, I can start like, oh, right, I need to identify what's at my body first to help me.
Yeah. It's increasing that safety as we help our nervous systems know I can feel this irritation in this case, right? Or frustration or whatever it is. And it's safe to feel that emotion. It grows our emotional maturity. And now the emotion doesn't drive us, right? So now I feel irritated. Yeah. And instead of letting the irritation drive my actions, I plop the irritation into my situation, right? Now that's the fact. And my thought is it's safe to feel irritated. I don't have to react on this. I don't have to do anything about this. I get to just allow it to go through my body. And now I'm in control instead of it in control, if that makes sense. I'm consciously in control.
Yeah. Super good.
So increasing the safety. So one homework you could do is what are the emotions? Irritation came up this time, but if there's a couple that these are my typical go-to trigger emotions, right? Mine is usually frustration. So taking a few minutes even and saying like, okay, this is what irritation feels like in my body. Because in the moment when you're getting triggered, you're probably less in tune to that, right? Because typically we just go right until it becomes the driver to the actions. So it's like, here's where I feel it in my chest. I feel it in my shoulders. My neck is tight. I'm having these thoughts come up or whatever. And so intentionally, I know this might sound icky, but intentionally sitting and letting that emotion of irritation come into your body and then practicing, even making it bigger, like thinking of something that really irritated you. I'm like, ooh, that's really big. And then can I make it smaller? Now you're in control of that emotion. It's not in control of you and it's safe. And just reminding yourself it's safe. It's safe to feel this. It doesn't mean anything. It's just an emotion.
That's really interesting. Huh. I like the idea of taking the time, maybe like for a thought download. It's just like,
just an emotion download. Yeah.
I never know I could do that. That's a great idea. I love that.
Yeah. It's really powerful. It feels very counterintuitive because like, who would want to feel a negative emotion on purpose? But it's increasing your capacity to hold it in a safe space for yourself.
This is really good.
Okay. Awesome. I'll let you go back to your kiddos.
All right. Bye.
Bye. Hopefully that helped everybody with the emotions and processing them. There's so much power in creating safety around emotions, making them be something that we're observing and something that we're comfortable with and not something that we're resisting or that we are fearful of. I mean, that happens, but getting more and more intentional about the journey of becoming very comfortable with our emotions. So emotions, how to feel the emotions. I'm getting one question about that. Yeah, there's no perfect exact way to do it, but here's what I'm going to tell you today is to drop in and first of all, welcome the emotion that's coming up for you. So remember that everything we do is because of an emotion. And as we like go into that more and more, and we have more awareness around that, then we'll get more and more comfortable with this idea of like, oh my gosh, I for sure want to become really familiar, almost really good friends with emotions, with what they're doing to my body, to what they're creating in my body. And typically in society, we're avoiding them to different degrees, right? Of avoiding them. Sometimes we're noticing them, and the positive ones we're more comfortable with holding on to and noticing. But even then, I would say what I found for myself and most of you moms I work with is that we're still not totally aware even of what the positive emotions feel like in our body. So one challenge I would give to everybody is to really drop into what are the emotions in my body and can I track them? They call this somatic tracking, where we're actually feeling where they are in our body. We're allowing them to move all the way through. This is one of the things we're not taught in school. Emotional intelligence. It's like one of the most tragic things missing, I think, in the conversation we're having. But every single thing we do in our lives is because of how we are feeling ultimately, right? There's a thought there that might be conscious or subconscious, but the thought in and of itself isn't what drives the actions. It's the emotion. And if we are avoiding or trying to get rid of an emotion, typically we go into action very quickly to try to change the situation outside of us so that we can change that negative emotion. So I want you to think about it. Every single decision that you're making, every dream that you're achieving or you're letting die, every conversation or action you're having with your kiddo is fueled by that emotion. And Dr. Neufeld says emotions are the engine to our maturation. They're only able to fuel our maturation or our growth if we are aware of them. If we're oblivious to them, they're not fueling anything. We're just kind of there feeling them, and we still get to feel them either way. I want you guys to think about that. You're feeling the irritation, or in my case, frustration. Either way, they're just not moving me forward. I just get to keep feeling them. It's like deja vu, right? Groundhog's Day every day. So one thing that all of us might do for a whole week even is just every day, instead of a thought download, do an emotion download. What are the emotions I'm feeling? And then where are they in my body? And you can do this after you've had a heated situation where you can feel that in your body, or you can revisit it just in retrospect. That thing that happened yesterday with my kiddo, what was I feeling? And can you bring up that emotion again so that you can feel what's happening in your body? I want you to seriously think about that power of becoming so comfortable with your little handful of quote unquote negative emotions that are causing the actions you're taking that you're not loving, of those steers that you're not in love with what's happening in the result line. And if every relationship we create is run based on how we feel, then we want to be really aware of that. So these feelings are directive, and we're naturally avoiding the negative emotions like that irritation, resentment, frustration, because of what it's feeling like in our body. But the challenge I'm giving all of us today, as a result of just diving into that with her, is that there is so much power in just being comfortable with negative emotions. I have felt this on so many levels in my own life lately. I look at the people who are doing things, parenting, business, wherever, if you pick any category, who are doing the things. And one of the through lines is their ability to feel negative emotions without being controlled by them. They aren't like, oh my gosh, I'm feeling a little bit down today, or depressed, or, I mean, those are real emotions. And I'm not saying we sometimes don't need help. Seek help with the depression or the emotions that you might need medical help with. But the emotions I'm talking about are just like that resentment, or that frustration, or that disappointment, things didn't go right, or the discouragement. And the people I've noticed are doing amazing, extraordinary things in the world are the ones that consistently have that capacity to hold the negative emotions without it being the driver. They can hold it, and then they plop it, and then they get it into the situation line, like, oh, emotion is resentment. My thought is this is safe, or this is something it's okay to feel, right? And then the emotion could be curiosity or openness. And then the actions is they're exploring it in their body, and they're increasing their safety around having it. So we want to understand this, especially as moms. Yes, especially as moms, because this allows us to have freedom. So let's spend this week being a little bit more emotionally aware, try to increase our emotional intelligence, or sometimes I call it the emotional quotient, right? Because we don't want to be limited in our potential. It has nothing to do with the available capacity we have or opportunities out there, but it has everything to do with our ability to either welcome the discomfort of these negative emotions or to avoid the discomfort. So an emotion or feeling is a vibration in your body. I will differentiate the two. An emotion, as defined by the developmental psychologists, is the reaction to the chemicals released in our brains when we have the thought, conscious or subconscious, the sensation in our body. And then the feeling is our conscious awareness to actually feel that emotion, to sit with it, and to feel that vibration, to feel that those chemicals in our body that are caused by the thoughts in our minds, to have the consciousness around it. There's an author named Pema Chodron, and she taught me that when we fear and resist negative emotion, we suffer. And when we have compassion for it and we allow it, we grow and thrive. Are we letting these negative emotions make us suffer? And by suffering, it might just be that it's happening over and over again. We're not making the headway we want. And that emotion keeps coming up and we keep reacting to it. The window of tolerance might be getting bigger. You might be getting better and better at it, but it's like, can I even get better? Can I be like Mother Teresa? I actually don't know if she was like this, but in my head, she was like, where she just stayed calm and collected all of the time and didn't lose her cool. And it wasn't because she was just passive and letting whatever happen, at least through the way I see her story. She was a mover and a shaker, and she was doing stuff, but she was doing it from this place of like very calm confidence. I'm sure she was still feeling negative emotions, but she wasn't being driven by the negative emotions. She was sensing them, letting them process through, and then gaining the awareness if she needed to in the moment, or maybe she already had it, so she could just let it be. She'd become so acquainted with it that it was like, oh, you're a visitor. You're welcome to be here. I have other things I need to get done today. So I'm going to go ahead and shift into this mode, but you're welcome to, stay if you need, or you can leave, right? But she's not putting a lot of attention and energy, and definitely not letting it be the fuel if something didn't go right? She might have felt frustration, but it wasn't like that started fueling the train. It was familiar, welcome, thank you for trying to keep me safe, and now I'm going to do this. So negative emotions, they're part of the human experience. And when we allow them, we have authority over them. And when we resist them, we suffer. And I want to just recap this, and I want this to be kind of your theme. Allowing is a skill you have to learn and practice. So it's not the same as reacting to an emotion. We're all really good at that. We're doing that in our sleep without any work or effort at all. We've been practicing that for years. So it's not the same as resisting. It's not the same as reacting. It's not the same as pretending it's not there, being like, it's fine, it's fine, it's fine, right? Let's say we're angry. And when you allow the feeling of anger to come up in your body without resisting, avoiding, reacting, you're going to notice it. Just like what we're talking about. Maybe you go do an emotion download. Maybe you're writing things down. Maybe you're just noticing it in your body and you're saying, I'm safe. I am safe. It's okay. I'm feeling this and it's okay. I love that it's okay at the end. I'm feeling this. It's okay. Sometimes, a lot of times I should say, I am putting my hand on my body where I'm feeling that emotion. So you could do this even in the moment. It's a little pause. Oh, it's the frustration's building. Put a hand where you feel it. It's okay. It's okay that I'm feeling this. This is frustration. This is anger, right? These are the questions I'd ask myself. What am I feeling? Where is it in my body? How do I know I'm feeling this versus something else? This emotion versus another emotion? And what is specific about this one? So instead of trying to get rid of it, this is what we normally do. I got to fix the situation. I got to get the kids to stop yelling. I got to get him to start working on his talk or whatever. I got to get them to start doing their chores. Instead, you're like, ooh, I feel a pretty strong emotion. I need to get really familiar with this, right? So put your hand where you feel it. And instead of trying to get rid of it, breathe it in like, oh, there you are, frustration. Open your heart up to it. Move towards it. I like to just visually think of myself. I'll usually close my eyes if I can. Thank you, body, for keeping me safe. That's the A in peace, right? Is that affirm? Everything's fine. Firm, firm, firm. I know I can handle this. It's just a vibration in my body. Often I'll feel my body wanting to tighten up, or I'll notice my shoulders are already tense like this. And I just ooh, where am I feeling it? Where am I tense? And I try to release it. And I let the emotions be heavy. I let them buzz or vibrate or agitate, whatever the emotion needs to do in my body without suffering, I heard this analogy a while ago and I love it. So I've used it ever since, of carrying it around like a purse, right? Oh, you're here. Okay. You can stay. That's fine, right? I'm observing it, frustration, the irritation. I'm observing it. I'm describing the emotion. I'm okay with it. I'm welcoming it in. I'm like, well, if you need to stay, at least you can be a purse on my shoulder as I'm moving through the rest of my world today. And oftentimes it's going to start softening as we accept it without judgment. We're just noticing. And this skill, you guys, is one of the most important skills you could learn. Once you're good at it, it can completely change your relationship with yourself, with your kids, with other humans, any other humans and people you come in contact with, because you won't be reactive, but rather you'll be a compassionate observer. It's the end of avoiding. It's the end of fear. It's the beginning of freedom. We're learning to have the freedom and the permission to experience humanness instead of just happiness. I'm willing to be human and feel all of it. I'm going to stop trying to just stay in the happy zone. I love it when I'm there, but me trying to be there actually makes me feel more negative. When I open up to the negative, I actually don't spend as much time there at all. They just come through. It's not even a negative experience that I'm having a negative emotion. I'm definitely not yelling or reacting to the kids when I'm having it. So when you avoid emotions, you cut yourself off from yourself, because emotions are part of being a human. And this is the opposite of growing and evolving. So you're going to find yourself procrastinating and using external things to distract you maybe from what's actually going on internally. Instead of sitting down and doing an emotion download, you're spinning on something else, you're cleaning the kitchen, and all those things are fine. We need to clean the kitchen and do the dishes and all the things. When we're doing those things because we are really not wanting to sit in this negative emotion and understand it, it just slows us down so much. So I want you to think about what you are unwilling to feel. Are those things scary or you don't want to feel them? Which is not a problem. I had a whole list of them that I didn't want to feel when I really sat down and was honest with myself. And you're going to recognize that you are avoiding emotions because we're afraid. They don't feel safe. So I want you to think about it right now. I want you to be aware of how you might be manipulating yourself in order to not feel discomfort on purpose. It comes up anyway. It's going to come up with the kids. It's going to come up when things happen. What if we just started leaning all the way into it? And what this will require of you is to pay really close attention to your body and to consistently ask yourself, what am I feeling right now? I would challenge you to do it on both sides of the spectrum. Like when things are going great, be like, what am I feeling right now? Why do I feel so great? What's amazing about that? Where is it in my body? If you can start tracking the emotions that you're more comfortable welcoming in, here's where happy feels, here's where excitement feels. This is the vibration kind of, I feel this energy in my body. Tap into those too. You want to know both sides of the spectrum. It's going to open you up and have you become like super mom for your kids. Because when you have given your body permission to feel all of those emotions, then whatever they're doing, that emotion comes in and you're not going to have that resistance or judgment that pops up as a result of it. You're just gonna be like, oh, there's some frustration. And then your logical brain stays on, your nervous system doesn't get triggered. Okay, awesome. You guys are great. Carry on, increase your window of tolerance. Ask yourself, why are emotions so helpful for me? How are negative emotions working perfectly for me? Do that. You're going to come up with some amazing thoughts. Emotions are the ingredients for your results. What emotions do you want in there? Okay, keep exploring those emotions, you guys. We will see you guys next time. See you later. Bye.
If you enjoyed listening to this podcast, come check out League, my Connect Method parenting coaching program, where we take this material and we apply it using my proven formula. Head over to cmp.works/join.